Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kia ora, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Kia ora. Rise to speak on the Copyright Parallel Importing of Films Amendment Bill. Mr. Chair, it gave me great pleasure to support Minister Foss's patent law, but it also gives me great pleasure to oppose this law because I think it's a bad law. I think it's anti-innovation. I think it's anti-competition. I think it's an old-fashioned bill which looks at a single platform and is quite literally giving a single platform, cinemas, a statutory monopoly, disadvantaging other platforms, disadvantaging competition and keeping us in the past, and that's why the Green Party is going to be opposing it. So what this bill does, Mr. Chair, and I think it's quite good that we're taking it as one part because this two-page bill could have been drawn out quite a long time if this House so desired. So being one part, we can look at all the parts in this two-page bill, and all this bill does is reinstate the parallel importing bans of films for 5 months down from 9 months out to 2016. Mr. Chair, we've noted in previous stages of the bill our disappointment with the process. We received a letter from Minister Foss which we were discussing in our caucus, and that afternoon it was put on the table, introduced under urgency. It wasn't like we needed urgency for this bill. We've had 10 years warning that this date was coming when the predecessor of this bill, which enforced the existing parallel importation ban, would expire. We had 10 years warning. There was no need for haste. So the process was very poor, but I would like to acknowledge the officials. I'd like to acknowledge the Select Committee members, in particular Claire Curran, the Chair, Mr Young, and all the submitters. It was a small number, but high-quality submissions. So, Mr Speaker, I take the position which is there was no good reason expressed on the committee why this sector, this platform for distribution, needed a statutory monopoly to protect itself for only 3 years. I heard no justification, and in fact what we heard is they had 10 years to prepare. 10 years to prepare. If they can't do it in 10, why are they going to do it in 3? Now, Mr. Chair, I am a supporter of cinemas. I am a user of cinemas, but I want to go to a cinema because they've got a great experience. They offer a great service, maybe films on a big screen in 3D. I don't want to have to go to a cinema because it's the only way I can use content. Disabled communities need different ways of using content, and only giving them the cinema experience limits their options. And that's why it's going to drive piracy, or as I call it, copyright infringement. That's what we heard on the Select Committee. What this bill does is encourage online copyright infringement, because just like the music industry, who didn't provide legal content at an affordable price for so many years, driving a whole generation, of which I include myself because I'm in my 31, a whole generation who learnt to, not that I did it, Mr Chair, of course, learnt to infringe copyright material because there was no legal way to get it online. And what we're saying here is that under this law, this is the only way you're going to get content, and in fact is, for many New Zealanders, the only other way is to do it unlawfully. Mr Chair, I believe this is akin to the butter margarine debates we had in New Zealand in the 70s and 80s, where to protect New Zealand's dairy industry and the butter industry, we gave it a statutory monopoly, actively discriminated against margarine. It was very difficult to get margarine to protect our butter industry. What we're saying here is that to protect one content platform, we're going to stop innovation. Now, I hear innovation bandied about in this House all the time, Mr Chair. Here was an opportunity to provide new digital content platforms, to provide new businesses to provide content. By limiting Kiwis' ability to access content, or in this case movies, through only platform, in this case cinemas, we're stopping innovation happening. Now, it's good that it's only going to happen for 3 years, and I hear the Labour Party's example that in 3 years there'll be a line in the sand. But, Mr Chair, I love cinemas. I want to support it, but I want to support good services, good quality, not because they have a statutory monopoly. Now, what we know is that this bill is a copyright change going through our Parliament. Now, I find it deeply ironic that the much-anticipated copyright review, which many Kiwis, particularly businesses, have been seeking, again, to promote innovation, has been delayed because of ostensibly the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. I find it deeply ironic that we can debate and pass this law around a parallel importing ban on copyright films, but we can't talk about copyright in a modern age. We can't talk about some of our antiquated, frankly ridiculous provisions in our Copyright Act written in a pre-internet age. And likewise, we can't do what the Aussies have done, the Americans have done, and look at some fair use exemptions. So we need to have a genuine debate, Mr. Chair, about copyright.
Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We need to have a genuine debate about copyright. Going down this path is the wrong way our Parliament should be looking. It's an old-fashioned approach which is using laws to tell Kiwis what they can use. When you tell people what they can use and what they consume, they're going to go down other paths. And it's disappointing. It's sending Kiwis the wrong message. Let's promote innovation. Let's support new Kiwi businesses, new jobs. Let's support those great cinemas competing because they're providing a great environment. And there's many of them in New Zealand and many Kiwis use them. So, Mr. Chair, that's why the Green Party's opposing this bill, and we'd be happy to work with any Parliament or any member in this House to have sensible copyright reform. Kia ora.
I call Tracy Martin.
Chair.